That's showbiz, baby. Welcome to episode 26 of That Showbiz Baby podcast, your all things music, business, and media podcast. I'm your host, Colin McKay, with my co-host, Joseph Wazaleski.
Hello.
Long time no see, Joe. Holiday break. Took it off, but we didn't miss much. The news was slow, so that worked out in our favor.
Yeah. I think everybody's taken off during the holidays. This is always like a weird time for the music industry because it's like, you know, we go like 100% the entire year.
And then winter just slows down unless you're releasing like a Christmas album or something. But even then it's not as close as summer.
Exactly. And it's even weird this year because of COVID and everything. So it's still kind of inking into to December a little bit more than it usually is. But I mean, the Grammys were announced. We have a bunch of interesting articles this week, so I'm excited to dive into those.
Hey,
but
if you want, I was going to say, if you want some more interesting articles, you can follow us at Twitter at ShowBizBabyPod, Facebook and Instagram at That Showbiz Baby Podcast, and email thatshowbizbabypodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, Colin covered my ass there. If you didn't notice,
I didn't mean to pull. I feel like Gus and Eddie, where I just was like stealing the intro from you, but it needed to be said.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We got some cool sayings on there if you want a reminder of life every once in a while.
Yeah, I'm a toddler, Colin. I need my handheld, and I need you to just do my job for me.
Yeah. Oh, and also you can check out our YouTube, That Showbiz Baby Podcast.
He's still going.
Because you can see either the video version of this, and we got some more content coming up involving Christmas songs and Grammys. So be on the lookout for that.
Yep.
All right.
But Colin, we're going to dive in with Sia.
Yeah. So before we left, this was kind of breaking and going, and then it kind of developed more. But Sia had to react to a lot of criticism and just a lot of stuff being thrown at this trailer of this movie she's involved with, music, from the autism community. And basically, she kind of was going off on Twitter in this not good way. So on the 19th, Sia released a 1-minute trailer for a movie called Music on her official YouTube page, for which this movie is her directorial debut. And she also wrote the script and the 10 songs that will be accompanying the album. I think this is important to note, obviously, because she's like fully invested in this.
Yeah.
This isn't just like, oh, I did the soundtrack. Like, she is almost all parts of this. So this is definitely close to heart. And I think this is why her response may have been very verbose. It started to get a lot of attention from the autism community due to the main character in the trailer named Music, who appears to be a nonverbal but also appears to communicate to the world through song and dance. And the negative attention from what I've seen is mainly due to the character being played by a neurotypical actor, Sia's response to the criticism over that, and the movie partnering with a controversial autism advocacy. Wow, that's a lot of A's. Autism advocacy group, Autism Speaks. And which it's important to note. I'm not really going to touch on that last one, but I needed to note it. Because it's kind of out of our expertise and focus on the podcast. But if you would like to research more, I would encourage you to do so. There's like so much involving that I can't really go into. We're not doctors, so like I can't go into all that.
Yeah.
So basically, I found a retweet from Sia on that front, and she basically said, "Autism Speaks came on like way longer in the process after the film was finished, 4 years in fact, and I had no idea it was such a polarizing group." So maybe she didn't know the criticism was there. So going to the other things, so she started getting all that attention for this neurotypical actor and the like depiction of this person who has autism in the movie, and she started tweeting and she goes, "Grr, fucking fuck, why don't you watch my film before you judge it, Fury," which it's censored, but like, what, why?
Yeah.
It's Twitter, who the hell cares? So basically, when Irish actor Brona Waugh tweeted, "Hi Sia, can I ask why you didn't cast a disabled actor for this part? It's pretty offensive the way you've chosen to portray the character. People with disabilities are not broken and don't need fixing. Many of my friends have different disabilities and there are some," and then it goes on longer. And Sia responded, "I agree. I've never referred to music as disabled. Special abilities is what I've always said, and casting someone at her level of functioning was cruel, not kind. So I made the executive decision that we would do our best to lovingly represent the community." And then basically someone said to that thread, did you do any research or consult the community at all? And Sia wrote, duh, I spent 3 fucking years researching. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, okay. Coming along a little hot there, Sia.
So later adding that she was confused at the pushback since the character is entirely based on her neuroatypical friend, in response to another commentator who asked why it would be cruel to cast someone with the character's abilities in place of Sia's longtime foil/video avatar, Ziegler. He found it too stressful being nonverbal, and I made this movie with nothing but love for him and his mother. Again, she's the writer, so he's kind of based off the main character is based off of him. She added, quote, 13 people are on the spectrum in this movie to show her representation, and a screenshot of Sia, which was really circulating around, has been going kind of crazy because basically she's replying to this tweet, and the tweet originally was, several autistic actors, myself included, respond to these tweets. We have all said we could have acted in it on short notice. These excuses are just excuses. The fact of the matter is zero effort has been made to include anyone who is actually autistic. Hashtag nothing about us without us. To which Sia replied, maybe you're just a bad actor. And I was like, holy shit. And Sia would later reply to the same tweet, fucking bullshit. You have no fucking idea because you were there and haven't seen the movie. The National Autism Society weighed in saying, Sia got this one wrong. There are so many talented autistic actors out there, and then it names a bunch of them I don't really want to go through, but some of them are Sakai, Alex, Mac, and Holly, who starred in our hashtag autism TMI films. And then notable to note, there are some people who are defending Sia, noting how people were giving her such harsh criticism without actually seeing the whole film and its portrayal of the neuroatypical music in the movie. And later, Sia noted that she had, quote, 2 people on the spectrum advising her at all times, and that she believes, quote, the movie is both a love letter to caregivers and the autism community. I believe the movie is beautiful and will create more good than harm. And if I'm wrong, I'll pay for it for the rest of my life.
All right. She's got her cards on the table there.
So, reading this and knowing her involvement in the film, because she's so involved, you can tell, this is a very personal thing for her. And I can see, it makes sense knowing this information, why she's so combative.
Yeah. I think she's coming on a little...
It doesn't give her the right to do that. And it's making a worse deal.
It seems more defensive than it is actually educating, which isn't this what the whole movie is supposed to be for? Is to kind of help educate and represent and all of those things. But it seems like her response isn't really to the same level to where the movie needs to be.
Right. And she clearly bolstered even more of a negative response and connotation with this movie by acting this way and tweeting out these kind of things.
Yeah.
Because I think if she attacked this from being like, hey, we had 2 people on the spectrum consulting on the movie. I have 13 people in the movie that are on the spectrum, and saying all of that, and then going please, take a chance with this movie, watch the full movie, not just the 1-minute trailer. I really tried my hardest. I wrote it. I wrote it about my friend who suffers, and goes through life being neuroatypical and stuff like that. And so that's kind of what I think she should have said.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
It just didn't land.
Right. She says this, but it's in this negative, space, which I'm going to also back up. I didn't mean to say suffered, because I don't feel people who suffer with autism, people who have autism are not suffering, which is kind of the big deal in this movie. I mean, I've had to do a lot of education and to understand the story and understand where they're coming from. So yeah, sorry about that. But basically, yeah, it's a roller coaster, to be honest, because I don't know. I don't know how this film's going to fare, because it seems, no offense, it seems to have a niche audience. It seems to be for the autism community specifically. You know what I mean?
And it doesn't seem like the autism community wants it.
Right. And like on top of her, having this neurotypical actor and also having, this Autism Speaks group in there, which is very controversial. It seems like the autism community is not about it.
Yeah.
So like, I'm a little worried, for Sia, especially if it does badly, like what her response might be, especially since, she's getting criticism from a 1 minute, trailer. They have the whole movie to dissect and destroy, and she's put, all her love and soul into writing the script and the songs and picking out all these people, and it's literally been a multi-year process. I don't know how she's going to fare with that, if that makes sense.
I know you said you didn't want to like dive too far into it, but could you kind of give me an outline of the Autism Speaks?
So basically,
thing?
From my research, they've had a lot of issues with like trying to unite the autism community under one banner because they're an advocacy group, but the way they talk about autism is controversial, especially because like I was saying, I said suffered before, and I didn't mean that because I was having kind of a thing from reading Autism Speak stuff, because they believe autism and any kind of like, mental capacity thing going on is a disease and needs to be cured. So that's kind of viewed controversially. They've had things with people have been mad at them for because they do a lot of studies, and with money, like the efficiency of the money is one thing because they get a lot of money. So that's always with any charity group or advocacy group. But also they've got a lot of crap for looking into vaccines and what they do if they cause autism or something like that, and people thought that was legitimizing the platform.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah, like that's kind of the three that I saw that were big. I'm sure there's many. Again, I'm not a member of the autism community, but that's kind of what I saw big picture that was in it. And a lot of people, if you go to the video, are saying, like the top comments of the video of music is like, why are you with this group? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So definitely not winning any popularity contests right now.
At the minimum, I don't know because I'm not part of the autism community, but in my research, at the minimum, the group seems divisive. So I don't know if that was a good move on her part to partner the movie with.
Yeah. I wonder how this idea came to be, because it seems like she went into it honestly not. I mean, I know she's saying she's researched for the past 3 years in that one tweet, but it seemed like before that she wasn't researching.
Right. It seems to me what was happening is that she's trying to write, kind of a loving thing for her neuroatypical friend and her mother is kind of what's going on. But the autism community has different ideas than her, particularly on autism and stuff like that. And, especially in a film, again, we're judging this based off a 1 minute trailer. So I will give her that like,
maybe we should wait until the movie comes out.
Maybe we got to wait. I mean, she could maybe do some changes, rewrites or something like that. But based on the 1 minute trailer, I see, other than, a neurotypical person playing it, which there's a, whole debate in Hollywood about like who should play different roles based off of the capacity of the actor and also the capacity of the character. But like the other issue at fact is it seems to be, to me, it seems like she's so wrapped up in her image of like what her friend goes through and what her mother or the mother goes through.
But she's not really taking the whole community.
Right. So she maybe be like, she may have her opinions of her own that are not, kind of majority owned in the autism community. And so like she thought, oh, I'm just, she's like, I'm coming from a good place here. I'm doing the best I can and everything. And I really, I feel like she might feel insulted for her friend, you know what I mean? Because she's like, no, I do really love, like that seems to come into question her, love for him and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think she's just very offended by it. I'd be interested what's going to happen because like, again, it's just very niche from like, what it's been marketed as. It seems like that the autism community would have to embrace it for it to go into the major spectrum.
Yeah.
Of like, consumerism and stuff like that. So I don't know. I mean, it's got 10 songs on the album, so 10 song album. So that definitely, Sia fans who are not necessarily part of the autism community could be drawn to that, and other people could be drawn to that. But again, I don't know how it seemed like a musical from the trailer. So it's not like it's not like soundtrack music. So that's very important. So you could probably listen to this side from the movie and understand everything. Like actually enjoy the song to its fullest. It's not like a musical. It doesn't seem to me from the trailer that it's like a musical song where there's like characters named and like story, people talking over. It actually just seems like songs.
Yeah.
So like that's the other thing it has going for it is you could get more people from there. But, if these people are going to be attracted from this album and all they see is, oh, this is about, someone who's neuroatypical and stuff. What does the atypical community have to say about this? And every one of the reviews is like, this is terrible. This is awful. You know what I mean? That's going to drive people away. You know what I mean? Because nobody wants to be part of the problem of, looking at representation the wrong way or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she's definitely fighting an uphill battle at this point.
And she just dug the biggest hole for herself.
Yeah, I agree. I think she could have handled that much better. But yeah, I do think maybe we should wait until the movie comes out just so we know exactly
yeah, that's
what
kind
we're
of my
getting into.
thing too, is I'm like, it's a 1-minute trailer. Somebody cut this together. I mean, I will say she seems heavily involved from writing and being the director and stuff. So I'm sure she was involved with the cut of the trailer, but like, we have to give it at least some due diligence to hopefully give up, maybe give to itself, because again, it does seem like it's made from love, you know what I mean? Like from a point of like, I want people to know about this. I want, people who are neuroatypical to be celebrated.
Yeah.
So like, it's not coming from a bad place, but like, I'm still worried, I don't want these, this community to be represented in a terrible way. You know what I mean? I also don't want Sia to lose her mind, and be like, I'm so mad about this. I put my whole heart into it and just end her career in a Twitter rampage or something.
If anybody should be mad, I don't think it's Sia, in this situation.
It's so minuscule compared to the community. But what I'm saying is like looking at both sides, I just feel like I don't want either, I don't want these people to be represented in a terrible way that, hundreds of thousands of people could view and be like, oh, this is what neuroatypical people deal with and this is how they are. I don't want that to happen, but I also don't want Sia to just be like, because I like her music, I don't want her to like end her career, you know what I mean, by basically just going off and being like, oh, I'm so involved with this and stuff, so I have to care so much. And if these people are hurting me, but taking it so personal instead of taking criticism from a community that you're making a movie about.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Well, and it seems like she's not really taking criticism so far.
Yeah, the only one that was kind of mild-mannered that I found was that one about Autism where she was like, I did not know that. I'm sorry. It's very polarizing. I didn't know.
Yeah.
So like, let's see. We'll have to see what she does. I mean, like if there's more trailers that come out and stuff and it just gets bombarded, who knows?
Yep, we shall see. But moving on, Spotify has announced their most streamed artist of 2020. And Colin, can you guess who it is?
Well, I couldn't, but I'm reading it in front of me. So
give me a guess, Colin. Come on. You got this.
Wow. From what I'm reading?
Yeah.
Bad Bunny.
Wow. You got it, Colin.
I'm very good at guessing.
All right. Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio, a.k.a. Puerto Rican pop icon Bad Bunny, has been in demand over the recent years after his appearance in Cardi B's I Like It, which propelled him into the view of the global market and has allowed him to collaborate with artists such as Ricky Martin, J-Lo, Maluma, Daddy Yankee, and many more. His third studio album, Yo Hago Lo Que Me Da La Gana, I might have totally butchered that. I'm sorry if I did.
I don't think it was that terrible.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Released this year has exploded on the streaming site, as well as becoming the highest charting all Spanish album of all time on the US Billboard chart. He has since released 2 more studio projects, as well as appearing as a guest performer during the 2020 Super Bowl halftime show with Shakira and J-Lo. And currently, the artist has tested positive for COVID-19, but has said that his symptoms have been mild and that he is almost recovered, as reported November 23rd. So Bad Bunny was also the first Latin rap artist on the cover of Rolling Stone, and Latin music is in high demand and has been in the industry since Despacito, a song by Luis Fonsi, took the world by storm in 2017, and arguably it's been in demand long before that as well. So what does this mean? So there's a couple things that are important about this, but the biggest thing is that language barriers in music may be diminishing, and with streaming artists, artists could break into different global markets a lot easier than they could before, if that makes sense. So before, in order to break into the American market, you had to be in America, right? You had to have an album released in America. You had to have an American producer. You had to have all this stuff in order to get this album cycle, in order to elongate the album cycle more, and get as many sales and as much attention as possible. But now it seems like with streaming, you can really be anywhere in the world. You can upload your music. You can produce it with producers from, around the world as well, with how easy it is to get tracks to people. And I mean, you can blow up overnight, it seems like. Well, with Bad Bunny, he definitely had a career before his appearance on Cardi B's track. And so a lot of, at the time too, I think people don't realize this, but when Despacito blew up, people were talking for 2 years before that, hey, Latin music is the new thing. We need to sign a bunch of Latin artists, and we need to get these tracks on our radar, on our roster as quickly as possible. And then Despacito blew up, became a huge meme. Everybody loved it. And then after that, it was okay, now is the time. So that's why, if you listen to Cardi B's track, it's directly because of Despacito. I mean, you can tell.
Yeah, I think it's heavily Spanish, Hispanic, influence.
The Latin
music.
influence,
and
yeah.
So that's kind of a thing. That was a interesting time because it almost felt like this has happened multiple times in music, but it almost felt like, in the 90s when people were like, just go to Seattle and start getting people with flannel and sign them,
exactly.
what I mean? With Nirvana.
It was the same. It's kind of the same thing where it was we need to be going to tons of Latin communities and countries, and we need to find these artists because they're about to explode, and we might only have this limited time to get these artists.
Right. It seemed like it was either going to be making a huge base for, Latin music to expand into America and become more of, instead of a once in a while thing, a mainstay. And if not, people were like, well, we'll have our time, we'll get our things, and then we're out. You know what I mean? And then that's kind of what I think I think that's kind of, we're in the middle in between there from after Despacito. There's a lot of Latin influence in music and a lot of Latin artists that are growing big. And like you're saying, into the main space of America and other markets that don't primarily speak Spanish. Mm-hmm. But I would also add to that is that I think the expanding markets of the Spanish-speaking countries has grown as well, especially with more access to internet streaming, phones, and stuff like that has grown in so many countries, and to a level that also could be helping Bad Bunny in there because if you're already past the language barrier and your cultural background, your music has escape that place, then nothing's stopping you. So especially with the modernization of the world in terms of phones and streaming and stuff like that, it's still expanding. He already got past, you're only a Latin artist, you're only going to be played in Latin America or South America and stuff like that. He's already past that. So it's okay, we can listen to America. We can listen to the UK. We can listen to him in India. You know what I mean? So that's the other thing I would say is part of his success is that he was able to break that barrier, in Latin music.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing, the biggest way he was able to break that is through the production of a lot of the songs. Because it has a Latin feel, it has a Latin beat a lot of the time, but it still has that like modern production behind it.
Right. And then, it's not, he's not a one hit in that terms either. I mean, number 3 is J Balvin, and like he's from Colombia and stuff like that. So like he's not alone in this, Spanish Latin music growing.
And a lot of American artists are ripping, I guess, taking off the sound, whatever you want to call it.
It seems to me that a lot of them are like let's play in this for a minute. Like,
Yeah.
they'll just go, we could do a Latin.
Well, and a lot of that is because, management or whoever label exec is like, hey, we have to have at least one Latin sounding track on this in order to get it to the world market.
Right. And so like, that's kind of what they do is they're just like, okay, well, why don't you just, in your out and the best part, it can be inclusion. And then the worst part, it can be tokenism. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so like, you're going to have to make that decision as a consumer. If you're listening to something, if you're like, this just feels, a little bit like we're just putting our, water, we're putting our foot in the water just because we can. And we know that, Latin beats are hot and it feels superficial. You're just going to figure that out yourself.
Well, I think with Bad Bunny too, if you look at his career, another way he was able to break it out is because he was featured on so many, English tracks as well. And he was able to really connect mainstream English artists to his songs. Like he had Drake on a full Spanish song.
Yeah.
Like speaking Spanish on his song. Like that's a insanely huge deal because English has been the dominating language of world music. Yeah, basically at this point. So when you're able to bridge that gap now, and more people are being exposed to Latin music, to K-pop, to Indian music, to who knows what else that's going to come in popularity soon. It's insanely exciting because it opens the door to a lot more places than just, you got to make it to America to make it in the world.
Right.
And also I think it just, it keeps a lot of people on their toes and also educates people with other cultures, which I think at the end of the day, isn't that what music is all about? You know?
And it's great that he's doing that by speaking Spanish because you've seen it in other like K-pop, you know what I mean? Like all the songs that go really, really big and like, BTS and like Blackpink and all that kind of stuff have been breaking it a little bit, but like most of them are in English, you know what I mean? Like and stuff like that. So that's the amazing part about it is especially with rap particularly because like if you're kind of a rap fan or anything like that, it's just like
lyrics are so important.
Right, you lose the you obviously there's a melody to your voice even if you're not quote unquote singing straight up, but like you lose that aspect of it, and so like there's kind of a double emphasis on the lyrics and the rhythm, and so like to have that and to have people that don't know Spanish, you know what I mean, like that are like, oh, we like this even though we can't understand him is amazing. You know what I mean?
Well, I think too, most listeners, I have a feeling, there are definitely listeners that listen for lyrics, but I think the majority of people care more about the beat, the feel of the song rather than the lyrics of the song.
I would agree with you.
If they're catchy lyrics, even better, but I don't think the lyrics necessarily make or break the thing. Because,
I would agree with you, but like at the same time though, there's always in like any of that kind of music, there's always a line, end of a phrase lines, beginning of a phrase lines.
Yeah,
and
but
that's the stuff people remember.
But what I'm saying is the meaning behind it. Like, yes, the structure of lyrics are important in the song, but a lot of that is like rhythm, how you pronounce it, just the tonality of what you're saying,
right? Rather
than the meaning behind this word. What does this phrase mean? You know what I mean? And I also think to a certain extent that's great. But like you said, what if you don't know what the song is saying? You don't know what the song's about.
Yeah,
like it could mean anything.
It's like
if you don't know
it, Lifestyle. Where he says that song where like, and he's in the car in the music video and they get to the chorus and I literally like it took me years to finally kind of understand what he was saying, but I still liked it.
The lifestyle.
Yeah, like it took me forever to understand it, but it was like the phrasing of it and like the actual melody of just the way he's saying it. I was still hooked.
I like how you chose that song.
It's kind of the same way with metal for me too. Like if I listen to like super hardcore music or something like that and they're really screaming, like it took me a couple year or two to like actually be able to kind of decipher it in my brain. Mm-hmm. So like, even non, language barrier stuff, it could still be issue, and it could still work.
And pop music particularly is notorious for bad lyrics.
True.
And you know what? It doesn't fucking matter.
Right.
They still chart all the time.
Yeah.
So
I completely agree.
Yeah.
And I just, it's amazing to see him do that in a completely different language. That's I think what I think is a big deal for a lot of people is that, obviously he's doing great in his traditional markets of like Latin America and other Spanish speaking places and people who can understand Spanish and stuff like that. But I think it's amazing the amount of crossover he has and how like he has maintained that without losing that cross collateralization between that, like on the Cardi B song. Like I like his part on the Cardi B song, and
well, and that's why I think the feature thing is so important, because it's been able to keep him.
And that's kind of the thing I wanted to know, and we talked about is like, is the features counted in this streaming? I
don't know. I really don't know the answer to that, because
these are most of these, other than number 5 is The Weeknd, are rappers. Mm-hmm. And so I was wondering if
I'm gonna say yes. I think the features does count, because do you know, like when you go to Spotify and when the featured artist is in the title of the song, you can go. It'll be like it'll pull up artist list, and I'll have both artists listed.
So like I can see that benefiting, obviously people who, I like this person, click, okay, we're going to this person now.
Well, and I think the track is on their page too.
Right. That's what I'm wondering in terms of that. Does that like count? You know what I mean?
I think it does. The more I think about it.
That's what I'm wondering, because like it could be, I agree that that's like I would consider that, you're listening to the song and, you want to listen to this person. You've selected the song and he's a feature. And most of the time a feature, you're like a third of the song, at least. So I would say, okay, as a consumer, you have accepted this choice. You actually want to listen to it. But, that's why I was wondering, what was that? Did
we lost light. No, you're good.
Oh, okay. Sorry. We just had a weird light out in here. But like, yeah, it's like one of those things where I just don't understand. Like, I don't understand the counting. I would love to know the counting. Like, what's the basis of the counting and stuff like that, and like what factors into that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think it definitely. I would like to research more into that, but I definitely do think the features count.
Yeah,
especially if you're titled in the song.
Yeah, and there's actually even more interesting statistics, but I didn't want to go through like everything because we want to talk about the Grammys too, and it would literally be us talking about lists forever.
Yeah.
So like that's fine. I mean, like just a few shout outs that I think are interesting. It's like Billie Eilish is the most streamed female artist, which is crazy. And then this is going to relate to my next story. Number 2 most streamed album globally, After Hours The Weeknd, and number 1 most streamed songs globally is Blinding Lights, and that's important for my next category because The Weeknd has been getting anytime Grammys come up, people are like, these people were snubbed, but the Grammys particularly have like always just been like, yeah, that's just the name of the game, like people get mad about their album. But The Weeknd has had a lot of people and himself talking about why is The Weeknd not in any category. So basically shortly after his announcement or the announcement of the Grammys, The Weeknd took to Twitter to announce his feelings about not being nominated in any category. And he goes, quote, "The Grammys remain corrupt. You owe me, my fans, and the industry transparency." And so many were also shocked in the industry and general public due to the mass success of The Weeknd's single Blinding Lights and After Hours, which I just listed some things. But also we've covered in the past how Blinding Lights broke the record for most weeks at number 1 on the radio songs chart. And most recently, the single has spent a full year on the Hot 100 chart. And the album of song have done so well, I could literally keep listing statistics like that over and over. So,
yeah,
clearly it's not a lack of consumers, listening to this. And many artists have also come to his support and have, shown their outrage about his lack of Grammy nominations. Drake saying on Instagram, quote, "I think we should stop allowing ourselves to be shocked every year by the disconnect between impactful music and these awards and just accept that what once was the highest form of recognition may no longer matter to artists that exist now and the ones that come after." And I love this. It's like a relative you keep expecting to fix up, but they just can't change their ways. He also added that he thought The Weeknd, quote, as a lock for either album or song of the year, along with countless other reasonable assumptions, and it just never goes that way. Halsey also was one who was considered to be snubbed, and she considered herself to kind of be snubbed too, as I'll read in the statement. But she specifically was saying support for The Weeknd, and adding on the Grammys, she goes, "The Grammys are an elusive process. It can often be about behind-the-scenes private performances, knowing the right people, campaigning through the grapevine with the right handshakes and bribes that can be just ambiguous enough to pass as not bribes. And if you get that far, it's about committing to exclusive TV performances and making sure you help the Academy make their millions in advertising on the night of the show, ... Perhaps sometimes it is, ! But it's not always about the music or the quality or culture." And then basically, basically the Grammys had to make a response to this because people were all talking about it. And so Harvey Mason Jr., the Recording Academy's chair and interim president / chief executive officer, shared with CNN and others. He said, quote, "We understand that The Weeknd is disappointed at not being nominated. I was surprised and can empathize with that, with what he feels. His music this year was excellent." His statement continues, "We were thrilled when we found out that he would be performing at the upcoming Super Bowl, and we would have loved to have him also perform on the Grammy stage the weekend before. To be clear, voting in all categories ended well before The Weeknd's performance at the Super Bowl was announced, so in no way could it have been affected the nomination process." So the last part of the statement I wanted to include has to deal with a lot of reports that people have been saying, because Variety said a source close to the situation told Variety that the Grammys and The Weeknd's team were at odds over him playing both the January 31st Grammy ceremony and the Super Bowl halftime show, which occurs a week later. But Variety asserts that it seems more to deal with the Grammy committees simply not picking him, which they even talk about later, that there may have been an issue about what category The Weeknd was in, because the actual committees work so independently from each other. So they, like, the main ones they mentioned were pop and R&B. So they thought maybe a theory is that maybe the pop section didn't put him into the pop, like, actual nominations because they thought he was going to get picked in R&B, and maybe R&B thought, oh, he's going to get picked into pop.
Which, I mean, it's stupid.
It's dumb.
I'm not gonna lie. That's such a dumb excuse.
Yeah. So here's my opinion about it, and we'll probably talk more about the Grammys here in a second. But like The Weeknd, I listened to the whole album. I listened to the whole thing, like, because I've listened to Blinding Lights like a million times, not by choice, and so I was like, okay, let's see, because I think Blinding Lights is okay. I don't think it's like the greatest song ever. And I listened to it, and the album's pretty good. And I think, honestly, there's better songs on that album than Blinding Lights is in terms of like all that stuff. I get why it's big, obviously, from the form factor and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so, in my opinion, I think he should have at least been in the album category, or song category. I mean, he had record category.
He had just numbers aside, like looking at the numbers, he had an insane year.
Right.
Like it makes absolutely no sense that he wouldn't at least have been nominated for one or two.
Right. And it seems like,
and some of these people, which we discussed off mic, it seems like I haven't even heard about these people for years.
Right. And we're going to have like some content about the Grammys in a future YouTube video. So we're not going to talk about picks, but there's like some things that like, we're like, why is this in here? Like, I'll just put this straight out. I don't know why Everyday Life by Coldplay is in there and After Hours is not in there.
Yeah.
I don't know why this Jacob Collier album is in there and not After Hours. You know what I mean? And I don't think that, and the Academy also doesn't think this, but I personally don't think that commercial success equals into the Grammys. I don't think that's like a 1-to-1 equation. But I think it's, a little ignorant if you're trying to, this is it's supposed to be, picked by industry people and all this kind of stuff. So it's supposed to be kind of exclusive and all this kind of stuff. But like, even then, it's hard to ignore, the presence of that album and like all that kind of stuff in your decisions. I think personally on the whole situation, I think Drake hit it on the nail with saying about, there's been a disconnect between the Grammys and impactful music for an amount of time.
Yeah, why are we surprised at this
Why
point?
are we surprised? We keep telling it to fix itself and it's not. And we've covered a bunch of Grammy changes and them changing how the committees work and stuff. And I think there's steps forward, but like at the same time, I think the Grammys is in a weird place because, I mean, if you talk to anyone that's not, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably, a very music aficionado in some way. But if you talk to like a regular person, it would be like, what's the biggest thing you could get if you were an artist? They would probably say a Grammy. You know what I mean? Like in terms of like awards.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, the name value is so high.
right. And so like,
And not only the name value, but I mean, if you win a Grammy, your sales like sometimes triple.
Right. And
overnight,
so like it works, you know what I mean? In terms of like, it's a thing that you want to win other than the prestige, and like it's held in high regard. And I agree with Drake that like, I think it would be fine for us as, a society to try to, go away from the Grammys and maybe make a new award or do something like that. But until we also stop supporting it so much, it's not going to happen. Until, artists aren't putting all over, oh, I have, there's artists that we know that like just put, I was the number one fiddle player on the Canadian rock charts for 2 weeks in a row, while also basket weaving. And that's like their press photo, you know what I mean? Is like, that's underneath the press photo, is that whole thing I just said. But like that, that's kind of the thing is like, as an industry, we can't stop the prevalence of the Grammys unless we all agree to. And so that's kind of part of the problem.
Well, and then if it's not the Grammys, it's probably going to be another award thing that's going to take its place.
Right, like the VMAs or, something like that.
And I think the main issue with the Grammys, as we have seen over and over and over again, is like Halsey said, you're basically running a campaign.
Yeah, it's very close to how the Oscars are in terms of like having to really campaign for yourself and get all this stuff in there.
So your team, your manager has to like shake a lot of hands, and they have to take a lot of people out to dinner and they have to do all this stuff. Unless, and a lot of people don't like to talk about it because they don't like to come out and say, oh yeah, I've been taken to dinner 20 times this week.
Or we campaign for it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I agree with the Weeknd statement. It's like, we know there's committees and stuff like that, but like, I would like, I think the general public would like more of a know, like, how do these people get selected? Like, what's it like on a committee? Like all this kind of stuff. Well,
and just getting a Grammy vote in general,
Right.
Because, and there's the debate, like you said before, it's picked by industry, executive specialists. But do we need to open it up to more of a public input? Like voting
I would be
system?
cool if an award show did that. If it's, we're in a day and age, if you literally everybody got to vote, and if somehow they had the IT infrastructure to prevent like mass voter
fraud. Doesn't the VMAs do that?
Yeah, to an extent, but like,
there's still like a committee, but I think it's like the same. Like you do have like a public vote system that then translates to.
Right. But I think I think there's still a basis of like, they get to pick, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. And like, that's kind of my thing. I think it would be interesting to have a, human kind of selection process, but then at what point could you scam that? Could I hire someone to write a program that just opens, a million tabs on a million different computers to vote? What do I have to do? Give my phone number? Could I just get like a bunch of fake Google Hangout phone numbers and put that together?
Yeah.
Like, what's the end of, and that's kind of the thing, which I get why there's gatekeepers to the Grammys. I don't, I think that there's, some things, especially in the categories we don't hear about, that like would go unnoticed and unrecognized without people who specialize in those sort of fields.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, I feel like the give and take of gatekeeper to public is a little off, and a lot of people say that.
Yeah. Well, I guess we could just move on. We could just open it up to the Grammys in general.
Sure.
But like we said before, some of these names on these lists they really don't add up to me. Some, like, especially the Coldplay one.
So like, yeah.
And the Jacob Collier one as well. But like, it's just weird, like going down this list, because you're like, I don't really think these are Grammy worthy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they like even have, like, I haven't even heard of half of these.
So here's my thing. I think if we think the Grammys, it's like, these people are the best of the best music industry people. They are the people that know music, and this is supposed to be maybe an honor if they position the Grammys like this is supposed to be an honor within the industry, it's like a high honor. I get it from that perspective. Like,
yeah, but if we're looking at the popular music categories, we need to be taking popularity into account.
right.
And I don't think they're doing that.
So I think there's a level to it, and I think that I think it personally, it's just I'm fine with the Grammys having a balance of both, of having like we, as a committee, we thought this song was inventive and new.
Yeah.
Even though it's, some other song was really popular or something. You know what I mean? Like, and the other thing is that I think a lot of people forget with the Grammys is that it's got a weird thing of being absolute versus relative in terms of the Grammys are supposed to be a relative year, and that relative year is supposed to be comparison to everything that came out in music. And like we're saying this is the best of the best of like, whatever category. So like song of the year. If we had every song on a list somewhere, right, and we went through it, it's supposed to be relatively compared to it. So I think that's one thing that people sometimes get off of with the Grammys, which I don't agree with, is they're like, because there's so much an immense amount of music now that's not cataloged, because again, the Grammys have had a hard time updating with the ability, like us right now recording, like we could make an album right now, basically, if we wanted to. You know what I mean? Like we have that capacity. Back in the day, it's like the record labels are the gatekeepers. You don't make an album unless the record company pays for it.
Yeah.
So it was a little easier back then when you didn't have like a million bajillion songs a year. So like now they're at this weird thing where it's like, yeah, it's a relative contest against, is this song better than another song? But it's almost absolute in being like, there's an infinite amount of music that comes out in a year. Like in fact, like I don't think you could listen. I don't think it's physically possible for anyone to listen to the amount of music that comes out in a year just on like one streaming platform in a year. You know what I mean?
It's not possible.
So like, that's the problem with the Grammys in a lot of ways, is that you have that weird balance now of like I'm saying, relative to absolute, because these picks feel relative. Oh, okay, this song is better than this song. Like I'm just going to make an example of this in my opinion. Like Say So is a better song than Everything I Wanted. But then there's people in the back of their head that are like, is there a better song than Say So? Because there's an infinite amount of songs that basically come out a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which is why I think to a certain extent you do have to take those popularity numbers into account, because that's what differentiates those songs from all of the other songs, right?
And it depends on the category too.
It does depend on the category. But I do think it is, the Grammys are mostly a campaign. That's what you have to think of when you think of the Grammys. There was a lot of handshaking. There was a lot of dinner buying. There was a lot of conversations happening behind the scenes with a lot of the voters in order to see who they were going to go for. And that might be, some people might think that's fair. Some people might be like, whatever, But I think that inhibits a lot of where we want to place the music, because isn't it supposed to be about the music? If we're taking away popularity, we're taking away however we feel about a certain artist.
Yeah.
Are we actually choosing the correct songs? Are we actually nominating the correct people here?
Right. And then I guess to play devil's advocate, again, like there's no correct technically at all of this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I would like to point out, everybody bitches about the Grammys every year.
But to me, it seems like unfathomable, like just to think about like the Weeknd not being in here, since like literally I personally could not escape this song. People I knew were just talking about forever.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like one of those things where I'm like, why is this not, accounted for? And so like, I think again, there's a Grammys identity crisis also on top of my absolute relative argument of, is this an industry thing, or is this like we're talking about like what the public wants? You know what I mean?
Well, there's the industry, and then there's the inner industry,
right?
And I think this is an inner industry thing,
right?
Where it's so gatekept that like not even the gatekeepers can get into the parking lot,
right? And so like that's kind of like what I'm curious about is striking that balance in between the two. Now, if we're talking about popularity argument, the only one that I think really accounts popularity is the best new artist category, because there's a statement in it where basically the music has to break through into the public consciousness. And so like that's the only one that I think
I like that terminology, public consciousness.
Yeah, I think that's the only one that like verbatim says like you have to be in popularity to an extent.
Yeah.
The rest of them are like, oh, this is a songwriter award for like song of the year, and then it has to be in the release year, and it has to, oh wait, actually it says achieve prominence during the eligibility year. So like that's also a question, you know, like what is prominence, you know what I mean? So like that's also it. And so that's kind of the thing that I would say with the Weeknd is like the transparency thing is weird. Like what do you guys judge prominence on? Like, do you judge it on like, oh, this was prominent because of the particular sound of this, and it sounds like, you know, like Billie Eilish has a very unique sound, and let's say like, oh, it was prominent, but it had this very unique sound to it, so it was prominent. So does that make it more prominent than something that's just like cookie cutter song?
Yeah.
That's like, we've heard this
Cookie
song
cutter
50
pop.
times, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to, I think everyone just has a different opinion of what the Grammys are. And I don't think it's ever going to fit everybody's opinion of it.
Right. And so I agree. I still think it's like a thing that I personally will follow. It's like probably, in my opinion, like the one that I look at the most.
Absolutely.
Because of how hard it is to get a Grammy.
It's still the top award for music. It is still, publicly, it is still the top award.
Right. And like, it seems to me that, you know, at least to me, the Grammys are trying to, you know, put innovation in their field and stuff like that. But it seems that the speed is not there.
I would argue they are trying maybe to make it look like they are doing that. But I think this list this year shows maybe not.
I think we can make that argument for most Grammys, to be honest with you. It's just more of like, you know, like for instance, I think the Grammy, like we've talked about this actually on the podcast, the Grammy inner ruling voting changes where like you had to recuse yourself basically, you know, if you had some relation to something like this. Again, it was like self-recusal and stuff like that. So I'm like, well, that's not, you know, you could just say, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
But like
and then
at the
still
same
get your
time,
artist
it's better
in.
than nothing. So I'm glad that change is there.
The voting is very complicated, and to become a Grammy voter, it is, you have to even yourself have some level of prestige within the industry.
Hit me up. I will do it.
Yeah. Okay. We'll do it. Like, come on, let's host.
Yeah. Host Trevor Noah.
Yeah. Let's get Trevor Noah.
Another notable thing with the Grammys is that the rock category had all women in best rock performance, which I saw. Well, technically Big Thief is a band, but I think the front runner of it is a woman.
Yep.
So like, technicality. Like it's like me being like, all the guys on, you know, this record are it's like, I guess if you wanted to go by that rule, so then Haim is the only one, but then how do we end that? The recording engineer wasn't a woman?
Yeah,
like let people have it.
She's one of the main songwriters too. So
right. You know what I mean? So like I just saw people being jerks about it, and I was just like, hey, you can calm down. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And so that was cool. So like that, you know, that's a thing that I think with, you know, the Grammys is kind of innovative, is having that and not all men.
Yeah. Well, and I think this year too is just so different. And like you said off mic, you were like, I think people are just really honing in this year specifically because this is all we have.
Yeah. So I'll tell you why. So here's my theory, if you want to know it. Because if you win a Grammy, you tweet it like you're king of the world, right? Usual. Well, here's the thing. All these bands and all these people that usually tour have lost a lot of content for their stuff. They've lost the story, and money. So they've lost the stories of them at the concert. They've lost the ability to film things due to COVID restrictions and stuff like that. They've lost so much and stuff like that. But the one thing that's still going relatively normal is the Grammys. So I feel like in terms of, if you're thinking, well, it seems like people are really getting mad at the Grammys right now, I think one, they've always been mad, but two, I think that a lot of these artists are like, we would really, really like it to win a Grammy because that means that we'll have more eyes already in the cluttered internet space that's come up from COVID because so many people are like, buy this, buy this, buy this on the internet, even more than usual, are like, we need a guiding light for a bunch of people to go, you should listen to this music. Mm-hmm. And the Grammys is one of the things that has not gone down, unlike, you being at a concert and being like, oh, I love this song. I'll listen to the song later. Add it to my playlist. So like, yeah, I mean, that's a thing. I think that I think it's going to be interesting. What's going to happen? I think it's going to be COVID is always a huge thing, especially with doing live performances and stuff. I think that I don't think necessarily we're going to see like a big like protest or something, like I don't think we're going to see like no, we have decided as a music industry not to watch it or something. Like, I don't think we're going to see that. I think it's a relatively normal level.
At least not this year, but maybe,
right.
Maybe down the road if we get sick of it.
I think personally, the only time we would ever see that is we would have to come together and go, you have to just not care that you won a Grammy. Like it's not that, oh, we're not going to watch it or no.
It's that even if you have a Grammy, you're not going to tout your Grammy.
You have to act like it's a non-issue from an artist perspective. You know what I mean? And that's going to be the thing that like, look, you can get as many people as you want not to watch it and the advertisers and stuff. I get it. It's still, that hurts the Grammys because of advertising revenue and ratings and stuff like that. So I guess you are. But in terms of if you wanted to get, like, if you're the person at the end of this that's like, I want to get rid of this completely, this shit is stupid, then the way that you would have to get rid of it is to get the entire industry to go, we don't give a fuck about it. I'm not going to go put it on, my ad on Instagram that says I'm a Grammy winner.
Yeah, but I mean, we're a long way from that. So
that'll never happen, in my opinion, unless there's some other new award that comes in the field. But again, the Grammys also has so much prestige because they've been around so long. Yep. So like, it's just even multiple, like, the Grammys have been around for like almost close to 100 years. No, 63. Sorry, not close. So 63, like
3 centuries.
Right. 3 centuries of Grammys. Like Bach won one in like 1770. But like, no, like basically, what I'm saying is like the more time that goes on with the Grammys, the more prestige it adds. Because it'll be like, this is a 100-year award show, and you're going to tell me that this Grammy thing doesn't matter? There's been 100 years of great music.
Well, I think what's funny too are the guys who lose, and they're like, I never really wanted it anyways.
Oh my God.
And it's like, okay.
Yeah, you're just like,
sure,
okay.
buddy.
Yeah, look, I think if you wanted to make a power move as an artist, you would go, when you win the Grammy, you go, this shit is stupid. Y'all are so, like, you get up there and you say that. That's what it is. But if you're
I think there is an artist who keeps their Grammys in the bathroom. I can't remember who, but somebody does that.
But like, that's the way to do it. But if you're on the sideline, especially if you weren't even nominated and you're like, the Grammys are dumb, then everyone's just like, you're just mad because you didn't get nominated. Yeah. And that's kind of...
You didn't get invited to the birthday party, Paul.
Right. And especially...
I don't care about your taste.
Especially when you're an artist that puts out music that's not as much in the public sphere and you do that, that's fine. The reason the Weeknd had so many people rally behind him is because you cannot escape blinding lights no matter what you do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think this is not going to be the only conversation we have over the Grammys. It's going to be every year.
It's every year.
Time.
Yeah, I could talk about it for years. If you really want to, if you're so interested, if I get one person that goes, Colin, I want you to go through the whole Grammys. I was like, I will stream direct to you through FaceTime and go, this is my pick. This is my pick. Yeah, that's how, I don't even care if anybody else sees it. But if somebody was actually interested in that, I would do that for you because I like doing that. That's fun. And we have some extra content that we're doing. It's not going to be the whole thing. I'm telling that right now because me and Joe don't have a lot of biased opinions about the children's category of the Grammys. But like,
yeah, you know what? Baby Shark shouldn't win.
Right.
Fuck that song.
But like, yeah. So we're going to have some content on that on YouTube if you're interested in that of like kind of the big category. So if you're interested in that, then do that. If you're interested in the whole thing, hit me up. So yeah, let's get to our songs. Joe, what have you been listening to?
I've been listening to I Feel Live, the album by Tops, which is a great band.
Oh yeah, you told me to listen.
Yeah, they're really good. I'm really into them. And I've been listening to a guy named Charlie Brand, who actually has another band that's a bit more popular. I can't, their name is escaping me right now. But he's got a solo record that he put out way back. But it's super, I don't know. It's just, there's something calming about the whole record, and it's very musical, and it's just something that you can come back to and hear something new every single time.
Yeah.
So I try to do that a lot. And then also I've been listening again to my girl Minnie Trees, her I guess EP Slip Away, which is great. And the last person was Bad Bunny that I listened to.
Yeah. Here's my little tirade for the week, as I always get to this section. I listened to all of After Hours from the Weeknd, and here's my thing. If you are tired of Blinding Lights and you're like, okay, this song is just okay, because that's my opinion. Sorry. I think it's just okay. Do not sleep on the rest of the album, because I think there's about 3 or 4 tracks on here that I'm like, why the fuck have I never heard of this music? Because it's so much better than Blinding Lights, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The first single they did was Heartless, which I really, really like. And it's like, it's just got this energy to it that's really nice. Not to be confused with Kanye West. But like, yeah, it's just
not a cover.
It's got really, I don't know. It's just really good in that, like, the thing that, and again, we'll talk about Grammys more in another video, but like, After Hours, I think totally could have been an album of the year. And I think that's the strongest category, other than just biased popularity, if it was in it, that I would put it in. Like, I feel like it should win, because the album itself does a very good job in this day and age, which is a rarity, of being an album in terms of there's a theme to it. Tracks meld into one another. It seems like these songs were created to go into one another, flow. You know, you go to a high point, you go low down, you go, you know.
Is it a concept album?
I don't think it is.
Okay.
But like, it seems like it has the same
But it
vibe.
definitely has like, this is an album. This is an album creation.
I think with it, it's like, here's my thing with it. I think that, like, when people say that artists have periods, like they have periods of their career, like this is a specific sound that's a period of their career. That's what this album feels like, because it feels like one cohesive sound throughout it, instead of like, you know, we're listening to a bunch of singles, which is what a lot of streaming does and feels like. Like, I will say this, I don't like the album, but Taylor Swift Folklore has like a concept feel to it, even though I don't feel it's like a concept album. It just has like a cohesive sound. And so,
yeah, careful, Colin. There's a lot of Taylor Swift fans who are going to be listening.
I mean, we've already talked about the.
We don't want to get. Don't hurt us, please.
Yeah. So, like, basically, what I'm saying is like that. I mean, I have to award her for that too. Is what I'm saying is like that's. I think it's a very lost art in streaming, is doing that, and like it's ironic because a lot of these people release albums, quote unquote, and it feels like I'm listening to like my dad's records when it's like the '60s records where they literally just used to be like. Gary and the Pacemakers, greatest songs, and it's like 10 songs that are like all, you know, the same band, but
Gary
it doesn't.
and the Pacemakers.
That's a real band. Oh,
are you
Jerry?
serious?
It's Jerry and the Pacemakers.
Oh my god,
they were rivals to the Beatles at one point in their career. But
wow,
not
Sorry,
really, but
continue.
like very minorly. But like, yeah. Anyway, I like Heartless. I like Harder to Love. And I like In Your Eyes. Those are all great songs that I think even if you don't like Blinding Lights, you would probably like. So yeah, that's the main one I listened to and was like, okay. Other than that, I listened to a lot of the Grammy stuff, just on a giant car ride home from stuff. And I would also recommend this Her song that kind of blew. We're probably not going to end up talking about this category, but it blew like the whole record. Like, it's a one-off song, but it blew the category out in my opinion, which is for Song of the Year. And it's like I Can't Breathe. It's a great fucking song. Like, it just feels like you're listening to it and you're like, this is 2020 right here. Yeah. It's very, you know, politically minded and stuff like that. So I guess if you're not a fan of that, then you probably won't like this song. But I really like it. It's got a really nice, she really hits the core of like her sound of being that kind of slow jam stuff. But she does that, like, it's the kind of music where you just want to go like all the time with your head, like literally like that.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, that's kind of like what it feels like. And then like she does the spoken word part at the end that I hate fucking spoken word 90% of the time, especially when it's not.
Tell me you don't like slam poetry, dude?
When it's not rhythmic, yes. When it's like, when it's like literally, you know, when you make all major poet. If you make a poem out there and it's like a form or whatever, and it has like no scheme to it, you don't even have to fucking rhyme, but please just have like a pattern or anything in it that I can enjoy instead of you just talking in a weird rhythm, because that's all it is. But she does that and it hits with the beat the entire time. Like literally, like she says a line and like it'll line up with the beat, but it's not rapping. It's spoken word. Like it's just very well done spoken word.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to go on a limb of that two things. But that's showbiz, baby.
Thanks for making it through the whole video. If you're still here, I don't know what you're doing. You really should just subscribe and like, and I don't know, go cook or get ready for Christmas or what.
Yeah, buy your Christmas gifts if you haven't. There's people that have been so nice to you all year and you haven't bought them yet. Come on.
Yeah, that's me. God, I have to buy so many Christmas gifts. I'm not excited about it, okay?
If you want a Christmas gift to us, like, subscribe, and share.
Yeah, we'll link our Amazon wish list down below.